Hey guys, I'm Sonika. Today we're going to go a little closer with regard to our knowledge about macro photography, and I'm going to answer 7 questions that you guys have most frequently asked me on my YouTube videos about macro photography and the Raynox TCR250. So let's get started. If you like my video guys, give me a big thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. And now enjoy the video. Hey guys, I'm Sonika and once again it's Q&A time. Today I've taken 7 questions from my YouTube comments and also Instagram comments, and I compiled them and I'm going to answer them for you guys. And it's about the Raynox TCR250 and macro photography in general. So let me answer your questions. Digvesh Jain asks, autofocus or manual focus? I mostly use autofocus with my Raynox 90% of the time. I direct my focus point to the part that I want on most focus in the image, so that part is at least in focus. Even if the rest of the image is not that much in focus, it's okay. Mostly if, for example, it's a flower, so it can be maybe the pollen of the flower, it's an insect, the eye of the insect. It depends, there are no rules here. However, if you are finding it difficult to use autofocus, you can turn on the live view of the camera and it will become easier to focus. Or else manual focus, I use that sometimes when it's very difficult scene and my autofocus is not working, so manual focus will always be there. Second question is by Chandrasekhar Salunke. I have a Sony 90mm f2.8 macro lens, but I am not able to go very close to the macro subjects. Is it advisable to use Raynox TCR250 macro lens or extension tubes? I think a macro lens will always be better than the Raynox extension tubes. So first, my suggestion is that you master your macro lens and then go to buy any other equipment. You have to keep a very high f number guys, because the depth of field is very shallow in the macro world. F16 or sometimes even as high as f25. The subject is big. So first practice with your macro lens. You can practice at home with some coins, keychains, pins, etc. Go close to the subject. Keep moving your camera back and forth till you arrive at the correct focus. It will take a lot of persistence and patience, so don't give up. And once you start clicking good images and you feel that you want to go closer, then you can buy a Raynox or an extension tube, whatever you like. Both are going to give you almost similar results, but extension tubes are better I have heard, but Raynox is also not very far behind. Alin asks, are you sure it's working with 7300mm? I used it with 55mm well, but with 7300 I cannot focus. I can't get anything in focus with the Raynox over it. With the 7300, the depth of field is going to be very shallow, like I mentioned. So you will have to practice a lot and you have to keep a high f number, f16, or sometimes I have to go as high as f25 if the subject is bigger, like a flower where I want all the petals to be in focus. If it's a small insect like an ant or a spider, it may be easier to focus because the subject's size is small. So even in 7300mm lens, first practice at 70mm. Then when you start getting things in focus in 70mm, go to 80, 90, 100 and slowly increase your focal length. At 300mm, nothing is going to be visible. Yes, it is very shallow. So yeah, keep practicing and it's going to take a lot of practice and patience. Sahil asks a difference between macro and micro photography. Macro photography involves photographing subjects with a macro lens or a macro attachment like a Raynox or extension tubes. A 1:1 ratio, meaning the size of the subject in real life is equal to the size of the image in the sensor. Micro photography is photographing at a microscopic level, meaning objects you can't see with the naked eye. You need a microscope to view them. So macro photography, we click photos of objects like insects, flowers, which you can see with the naked eye, but with just more detail. But in micro photography, you click maybe some microorganisms, the flower, which you can never see with the naked eye, and you need to see them with a microscope. Pedro Gorilla asks, great, I just bought one of these. I don't know, it would be so hard to focus properly. Maybe it is easier with the 150. 150 means Renox DCR 150, guys. So the Renox DCR 150 will make it easier for you to focus. It has less shallow depth of field than the DCR 250, but also magnification will be less there. So if you are a beginner, it is always better to go for DCR 150 than 250. I've made a detailed comparison about Renox DCR 150 and 250, which you can check out right here. Lalenkima asks, Nikon 7300mm AFP with Renox or Nikon 105mm f2.8 VR, which is better? There's no correct answer. Both lenses have their own ups and downs. But with the prime lens, it's going to be more difficult to focus as your depth of field will be more shallow. But obviously, it will give you more magnification. So my advice is, if you are a beginner, first try with 7300, and that also at around 70mm, then 75, 80, 90, 100. Gradually increase your focal length. Okay, and when you start getting things in focus at around 90 or 100mm, then go to your prime lens. Yeah, keep experimenting. The prime lens will give you more magnification and it will give you better depth, but you need to practice. Vikas Sarang asks, I think you should do a Photoshop tutorial on how to edit macros. Okay, let's do it. Let me edit an image clip with the Renox DCR 250 and show you how I edit my images in Adobe Photoshop.
So guys, these are my two macro photos that I will edit in Photoshop and show you. First is of the signature spider and second is of some okra. I clicked at home, so let me show you how I edit my images. I bring my image into Photoshop, and since this is a raw file, the Adobe Camera Raw filter will open first. So first I'll go to my optics tab, remove chromatic aberration, enable lens correction, and automatically it picks up my lens type. I don't need to do anything here. Then I'll go to my basic tab and adjust my basic settings like highlights, shadows, increase the contrast, adjust my exposure a bit. Similarly, I'll adjust my whites and blacks by pressing down the Alt key. Texture, give it little texture so that those webs kind of stand out, the thin lines of the web. Similarly, clarity, and I'll dehaze this image a bit. Reduce vibrance so that the background becomes less prominent. And curves, I like to play with the curves so that my spider becomes brighter. Noise reduction, yes. Increase sharpness also. And I'll adjust the greens, make them less strong. Similarly, reduce yellows. Now I'll open my file, it looks fine. See how good magnification you get with the Renox. This is in camera, guys. I've just edited it for you. I like this a lot. Now I'll go to my second image. So of some okra I cut up and just clicked at home on a plain black background. Here also, first I'll go to optics, remove chromatic aberration, enable lens correction, and in the basic tab I will reduce the shadows because I want this black to become even more strong. I want the background to be fully black, so I'll reduce the shadows take them towards the darker side. And now I'll adjust my remaining settings, reduce contrast a bit, and also I'll reduce the exposure. I'll not increase the exposure too much so that my background starts coming up. Texture, clarity, so that the texture of my ochre really comes out. Little vibrance and saturation. Now the curves, I'll fidget with the curves a little bit. And more sharpness. Noise reduction is not needed here since I clicked this at 160 ISO. Now I'll take this brush and I'll paint over this subject, and again I'll increase the clarity to make it even more prominent. Texture, hue, I can adjust the hues, so maybe I'll take it little more to green and yellow. Open, and I'll create a new layer. I'll select a black brush and just brush on the sides so that my background is completely black. There are no distractions whatsoever, because I can see some little gray points there. So let me reduce that by brushing it out, and my image is ready.
So guys, I hope I answered your questions correctly and cleared your doubts about the Renox DCR250 and macro photography in general. If I did, give me a big thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. If you have still more questions that you want answered, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also turn on the bell icon to be notified whenever I post new videos. There is my previous Renox Q&A with more questions for you guys which I've answered. Please go check it out guys. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more such videos every Wednesday on my channel. Bye.